Hey, Daniel here. I hope you're doing well. Today I want to just bring you a video on the Sharp by Design Mini Tempest. I think this is a relatively new knife. It's been around, I think I don't know, it's been around for, I think, 2 or 3 months now, or maybe a bit longer. So, I mean, it's not like a new knife, but, it's fairly new. But definitely, this was a knife that was a long time coming for sure. But I think it's really definitely worth the wait. I think any of Sharp by Design's knives are worth the wait for sure, especially their custom stuff. I've never handled any of his knives except for this one, but I'm super glad that I did because man, it really put me on to Brian's work. And I mean, his custom stuff, I mean, they look incredible. So yeah, if you're curious, I would say follow him on Instagram. He's always posting up his latest work. He also will update you on any knives that that are coming down the pipeline. But for sure, this video is specifically about the Mini Tempest. Now, I'll just go over the specs real quick and then go from there. So you got an overall length of 7.8 inches. You got a blade length of 3.5 inches of M390. Blade steel, you got a blade thickness of 0.135 inches. And as you can see, this specific configuration is in that the blue dark matter inlay with the Bowie blade shape and in that incredibly hand satin finish, as you can see. And this is the first knife actually where I've had like a hand satin finish, and oh my gosh, I don't know if I want to go back to anything else because this finish is just really beautiful to look at. It just gives it a certain kind of a character. A lot of my other knives are either, like stonewashed, or like a satin finish, but there's just something about like a hand satin finish that just really gives a knife just a unique aesthetic. So yeah, it just, I guess I'll just go ahead and talk about, well, before I do, let me do this. I want to bring out some knives for comparison here. So this knife is really interesting because this is a 3.5-inch bladed knife, but it doesn't feel or carry like one. So I want to bring to you, this is the Paramilitary 2. I believe this is also a 3.5, maybe a bit longer blade length, but as you can see here, it actually, is lengthwise, overall lengthwise, the Paramilitary 2 beats it for sure. The next knife I want to bring is a Para 3. This is with the Flytanium titanium scales. I want to put it right here. As you can see, this is a bit shorter than the Mini Tempest. And from there, I want to also bring, this is the Chris Reeve Sebenza 21 small. As you can see, it's fairly, so it kind of sits somewhere between the Paramilitary 2 and the Para 3 and the small Sebenza 21. So I feel like it's like that. It's really nice, like middle of the road kind of size. In terms of just the way this knife is built, I mean, it's flawless. I think there's two reasons for it. First of all, the company that manufactures this knife is Riot, and as you know, they're known for just their impeccable craftsmanship and manufacturing capabilities. But I think even more importantly is that Brian Nadeau has experience as a CNC guy, and so from what I've read in the forums, when he provides the specs and the plans to Riyadh, he provides precise like CNC instructions and specs so that Riyadh really just needs to execute based on what Brian provides. So I think the difference between Brian and a lot of other makers, maybe not a lot, but the other kind of makers out there, is that they may provide kind of the specs to the manufacturer, and then the manufacturer will then tool their their machines to execute, right? But I think with Brian, he literally provides like the codes and the exact like CNC instructions required for these CNC machines to create this, a knife of this level, So, yeah, it just in terms of the manufacturing, just quality is just perfection. It's impeccable. I mean, there's no like voids, there's no like machining marks or scratches anywhere on this machine. Even the way this inlay transitions to that titanium scale, that transition is like utterly seamless. I can't even feel it with my nail. It's just perfectly just transitions into that titanium scale. And I think I mean, I don't know much about like CNC and stuff like that, but I'm pretty sure that does take a certain level of skill and just forethought, to really think about these kinds of things. Just look at this. Even the way they kind of stepped up this pivot area, usually what you'll see is kind of like this flat, it's like a flat surface, right? Between that pivot and that surrounding handle scale. But look at that. With this Mini Tempest, it just steps up ever so slightly to just add. I think it's like an aesthetic thing, but also I think it just adds a little bit more, material around the pivot area, which, if I could see, really, if there was any point of failure, it would probably be in that pivot area. So maybe that step up adds a little bit more girth around that area just to kind of reinforce, any potential points of failure. I could be totally wrong, but just from what it just makes sense, right? As you can see, this is kind of like a bolster type design, where you have this inlay that kind of acts as a over travel stop. So it means that what that means is that it kind of prevents this lock bar from overextending on the other side, which may mess with the lockup, and all that. So yeah, that's really cool. As you can see here, all the edges have been rounded off, and you look at that. So this is two handle slabs that have been screwed together, right? But you could barely see that seam, and I can't, I mean, I could barely feel it, with my nail. But it's just the way that they've, manufactured this knife. It's just everything goes together just impeccably, I don't feel any hot spots whatsoever when I grip the knife. Not even in this pocket clip. This pocket clip is really nicely executed. It does have, a slight ramp up and a ramp down. And I don't feel it in my hand whatsoever. As you can see, I have medium-sized hands, and I get full purchase on the handle. As you can see, boom. I love how they've really just implemented this very slight kind of choil, nothing too obtrusive. It's a really good indexing point. It does provide some, level of just security when I grip the knife, but it's not overly done where it just feels like it's like, it's a burden in the hand. It just feels this knife feels very warm in the hand, and it's really because I feel like everything's just been contoured and rounded off. Everything is just finished so well. Moving on, let me see, what else should I say. I'll just go ahead and move on to this jimping. So this is, as you can see, a front flipper. So this is the first knife, front flipper knife that I've owned. Usually I'll have the traditional kind of that, what do you call it? This index finger, where the flipper is like located on the back side of the knife. But this is, as you can see, front flipper. So I think the most common way to open this knife is using your thumb and then just flicking it open. It did take what do you call it? A learning curve for me, because this didn't feel super natural, to me. I feel like I have to kind of grip this knife in a certain way to make sure that I'm activating that flipper. But honestly, after a few days of just playing with it, now it just feels a little bit more natural. So if you're kind of wondering if a front flipper is for you, if never you've never really handled a front flipper, it'll definitely take a learning curve for you. It may take a day or two to kind of make to feel a little bit more natural. But you know what? Like I said, see, now I could flick it 100% pretty much every single time. But I will say that this jimping is on the more aggressive side, and I think really it was intentionally designed that way so that it could really grip your thumb, so that you could deploy that knife securely and safely, 100%, right? And so, but yeah, it definitely has added another kind of callus mark on my thumb for sure, because like I said, I don't really own any other front flippers. But in terms of a front flipper, this is executed amazing. Like, see, as you can see, I could deploy it every single time. It's just beautifully designed. And I think another benefit of a front flipper is that it doesn't like poke out to the side. And so it kind of is a little bit more seamless in kind of the overall design. It kind of fits the overall profile of the knife a little bit more, rather than having like a little thing stick out on the side, right? So I think that's just another big plus. Moving on to this blade, like I said, just amazing. I love just the way this knife looks. They have the other configuration is they have like, I think, a traditional drop point, or yeah, I think it's a drop point blade, which I thought it looked really nice. But I think this Bowie shape kind of adds a little bit more character and flair to this knife. And this is cool that, it got this little fuller, this little groove right there. And that's cool because you could actually use that to kind of Spidey flick it, right? It does take a little bit of practice. But see, I could do it pretty much reliably, 100% of the time. I'm just using my middle finger and I kind of stick my nail in that groove and then boom, flies out. The action on this guy is incredible. As you can see, I could pretty much, it's not like guillotine drop shut, but with a little shake, it goes down pretty much all the way. And it's just the action, the feel of this knife is just, it's beautiful. It feels, it's more on the hydraulic end, but it's still, as you can see, with the shake, it just drops. The detent is dialed in perfectly, so it just sucks in the blade when it kind of, as you can see, check this out. As it enters the atmosphere, it just goes whoop. There you go. Beautiful. I love the detent on this guy. Yeah, like I said, the action is buttery smooth. I enjoy it so much. Sometimes I don't even like to just flick it. I like to just open it and then just open it like manually, just to feel how glassy, buttery smooth the action is. Yeah, it's incredible. One thing I did want to mention though is that even though this is a 3.5-inch blade, this knife does not carry or feel or use like a 3.5-inch blade. For example, I'm gonna bring out the Paramilitary 2. I feel like this feels like a 3.5-inch blade. It's just longer overall. It takes up a good amount of real estate in the pocket. But this Mini Tempest, it feels closer to like a 3-inch blade in terms of, I'm not talking about just the length, but I'm just talking about the overall profile. It's just very slim. It's very slim this way. It's very slim, this way. So it doesn't take up a lot of real estate in the pocket, and it doesn't feel like a big knife in hand. Even though it is, a 3.5-inch blade, it does not feel like a 3.5-inch blade, So if you're looking for a knife that won't take up a lot of real estate and just kind of acts or feels more like a smaller knife, even though it has a capability of a bigger knife, I feel like the Mini Tempest is definitely right up your alley. Like I said, it's very slim this way. So in the hand, it just feels like a smaller knife. Cool. Yeah, this is a very pocket-friendly knife. It feels very compact. You don't have that little flipper sticking out on the side, so even when it goes in the pocket, everything is just really just, it's just everything's just lined up. You won't be feeling, any, if you have other things in your pocket, you won't really feel anything kind of getting in your way, when you're putting your hand in your pocket. So I think if you're looking for a very pocket-friendly knife that sports a 3.5-inch blade, man, this Mini Tempest is perfect. Now, couple of my gripes, and really my one gripe is, do I even have a gripe? I don't think I do. You know what? I think one thing is it's more of a preference thing. I don't think I'm a front flipper kind of person. I know there's some folks that front flipper is like gospel. It's like you prefer front flipper. That's all is. It's whatever floats your boat. Whatever your cup of tea is, right? And I just realized that a front flipper is not like my cup of tea. I mean, so it's more of a preference thing. It has nothing to do with how the knife is made or how the knife performs. It performs beautifully. I've used this. I've carried this on a regular occasion, cutting down boxes, cardboard, food prep, just the, cutting, knickknacks, cutting tags off of clothing, just everyday normal, everyday use, right? This knife, man, I mean, is overkill. This knife could handle much more than that, but as a personal preference, I think I prefer more of that traditional flipper style where I use my index. Man, yeah, just, I think I have pansy thumbs. That's what it is. So if you have like man thumbs that you have no more nerve endings in your thumbs, I think a front flipper will be no issue for you. But, for those that are wondering, if a front flipper is your cup of tea, try it out. It may be, it may not be. I'll just leave it at that, right? So if I could have my own like kind of preference, I would prefer like a flipper. And I think the custom full Tempests are actually like the traditional kind of flipper style. Cool. What else can I say about this knife? I mean, there's nothing really to gripe about this knife. It's beautiful. It looks beautiful. It feels incredibly warm and just a pleasure to just hold and use and carry. The craftsmanship is just impeccably executed. Brian knows, he knows what he's doing. He's been in the knife game for a while. He's the kind of guy, from what I've seen, like just pays attention to detail. And I think in today's kind of knife market, it really comes down to the details. There's just so many options out there. There's just so many knives you could get at all price points, And nowadays, you could get a really awesome knife for, just budget, right? You have companies like Civivi and Wee and Spyderco and Artisan Cutlery and so on and so forth. I feel like every week I'm hearing about a new knife maker or knife company, so it's just saturated market. And so what I've really appreciated about Brian's work is that he pays attention to every little detail. I mean, no detail goes missed. And I think that he really communicates that well to his to Riyadh and to whatever other manufacturer he'll use in the future. I think he really makes sure that they are on board and they have the same stringent quality control measures that he himself implements in his custom knives. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching. Feel free to drop any questions or comments down below. If you enjoy my videos, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. I'd really appreciate it. Other than that, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day or evening, and I'll see you guys later. Take care.